Hello, and welcome to FTA's Circular 9040 Formula Grants for Rural Areas training series. I am Jay Lindsay with the Office of Grants Management and Guidance. FTA's Offices of Transit Programs and Grants Management and Guidance designed this series to provide our recipients and stakeholders a better understanding of changes made to FTA's official guidance for recipients' use of Section 5311 and 5339A formula funds apportioned to rural areas. To ensure we are all on the same page, I want to remind everyone that this presentation does not have the force and effect of the law and is not intended to bind the public in any way. It is educational and informational in nature with an intent to explain some of our existing requirements under the law or agency policy. I would like now to introduce Bruce Robinson, our Associate Administrator of Program Management, to provide our welcoming remarks.
Hello, my name is Bruce Robinson, FTA's Associate Administrator for Program Management. On behalf of the team here at the Federal Transit Administration, or FTA, I'm delighted to provide a brief introduction to the upcoming video training. FTA turned 60 years old this year, and one of our most exciting projects this year was updating several of FTA's major program circulars, as well as FTA's Award Management Requirement Circular, which is needed for all awards FTA administers. Over the last 2 years, staff worked tirelessly to update these circulars, working with headquarters and regional offices, as well as reaching out for public comment to update these documents. 4 circulars are Circular 5010, the Award Management Requirements Circular, Circular 9050, the Urbanized Area Formula Grant Program Guidance. This circular replaces, consolidates, and updates guidance for the Urbanized Area Formula Grant Program, the State of Good Repair Grant Program, and the Urbanized Area Formula component of the Grants of Buses and Bus Facilities Program. In addition, Circular 9040, the Rural Area Formula Grant Program Guidance, consolidates and updates guidance for the Buses and Bus Facilities Program that is rural, and the Formula Grants for Rural Area Program. Finally, Circular 97 is the Enhanced Mobility of Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities Program Guidance. As part of the updated circular release, FTA developed a video series for each circular to relay key information and highlight changes. Additionally, the team developed a number of materials to help work with grantees and help set the stage for understanding federal financial assistance requirements surrounding administering federal fund awards. This circular and training series is specifically designed to assist FTA's efforts to improving customer service and streamlining our processes, as well as reflecting and incorporating provisions from the Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act, or more commonly the FAST Act, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, as well as changes to the Uniform Administrative Requirements, Cost Principles, and Audit Requirements for Federal Awards, more commonly referred to as 2 CFR 200 or the Uniform Guidance, as well as incorporating changes to FTA's policies and procedures. We hope you find these videos informative. FTA has created a general email address for questions related to this update, FTA Circular Update 2024 at dot.gov, to assist in addressing questions regarding this release. For questions about information in the circulars, please reach out to your FTA regional contacts. But for now, please enjoy the show. Thank you.
Each Friday from October 18th through November 15th, 2024, FTA is posting a series of pre-recorded videos addressing summary grants management information and highlighting changes made in each of the updated circulars, including our Award Management Requirement Circular and each of our Formula Program circulars. The route ahead is our agenda. This training is the second in our series covering the development and management of FTA's rural programs in more detail. A more general overview of the circular and rural funding programs can be found in Session 1. For Session 2, we will walk through the second half of Circular 9040.1H, discussing planning and program development, program management and administration requirements, state management plan, Appalachian Development Public Transportation Assistance Program, intercity bus, Rural Transportation Assistance Program, Public Transportation on Indian Reservations, and procedures related to flexible funding. Our speakers for today are Matt Lang, FTA's Rural Formula Program Analyst, and Elan Flippin-Jones, who is the Tribal Transit Program Manager, both with the Office of Program Management. And now, here's Matt.
We also have a key to help you keep track of important information within the training slides. This pastoral scene means that the information pertains to Section 5311, which is our Rural Formula Program. An image of a bus means it pertains to Section 5339A, our Buses and Bus Facilities program. A light bulb indicates there is an update here to version 1H of Circular 9040. And a book means there is a reference to a specific citation within the circular. The image of a link provides a link to another FTA resource. And the image of a phone is an indication that a recipient should contact their FTA regional office for more information. So we'll start today with Chapter 5, which corresponds to the same chapter of the circular, Planning and Program Development. For planning requirements, projects proposed for Section 5311 and 5339A funding must be a product of the statewide and non-metropolitan transportation planning process and/or the metropolitan planning process specified in the joint FHWA and FTA planning regulations. With some limited exceptions, states must include all Section 5311 and Section 5339A funds to be used for transit projects in a STIP. For purposes of the STIP, the state may group its planned expenditures of Section 5311, 5339A, and RTAP funds into broad statewide projects, such as vehicle acquisition for rural transportation services, operating assistance, and the like. The state may also show that Section 5311, 5339A apportionments as one aggregate project. The Program of Projects, or POP, identifies the projects and subrecipients for which the state is applying for financial assistance in a given fiscal year. The Section 5311 and 5339A annual POP the state submits to FTA for approval must indicate the total number of projects and the funding source, the total number of recipients, each subrecipient, and indicate whether they are government authorities, private nonprofit agencies, operators of public transportation, or intercity bus service, and also identify any Indian tribal governments or tribal transit agencies. The POP must show, for each project, a brief description of county or tribal needs served, total project cost, and the federal share. After the state submits the annual POP and one or more complete grant applications, FTA will review, approve, and obligate funds for the total amount of funds available. FTA recognizes that not all projects in a state POP may be at the same stage of development, and therefore not all applications to the state may be complete at the time the state forwards its annual POP to FTA. FTA also recognizes that all subrecipients identified in the POP may not yet be in compliance with all applicable federal requirements. Therefore, to expedite award, FTA allows states to separate projects and funds included in its POP into two different categories, depending on how completely the subrecipients have met federal requirements. Projects in Category A include those projects that the state has certified as having met all federal statutory and administrative requirements for approval applicable to both the project activities and the subrecipient that will carry out those activities. When the state executes the grant, the state may start drawing down funds to implement projects in Category A. FTA expects most, if not all, of the projects included in the state's POP to be in this category. Projects in Category B include those projects that the state anticipates approving during the current year, but that have not yet met all federal statutory and/or administrative requirements. For example, a major capital project in Category B may be a project that has not yet completed the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA process, or other federal environmental requirements. Projects may also be in Category B when a subrecipient has not yet met all federal requirements. Funds may be reallocated among projects in an approved POP without prior FTA approval if the change does not modify the total amount of funds in the original POP by more than 20%. All other POP changes require prior approval by FTA. More information on POP revisions can be found in Chapter 5, Part 5.b. Federal law requires federal transit programs to use performance-driven, outcome-based approaches to transportation planning. This also includes requirements for transit asset management, or TAM, to assist the nation's transit systems in assessing their capital needs and prioritizing capital investments to achieve a state of good repair. FTA's implementing regulations for development of TAM plans define two tiers of public transportation providers that determine whether providers must develop their own TAM plan or participate in a group TAM plan. Tier 1 providers are recipients that own, operate, or manage either 101 or more vehicles in revenue service during peak regular service across all fixed route modes, or in any one non-fixed route mode, or those operating rail transit. Tier 1 providers must develop and carry out their own TAM plan. Tier 2 providers are recipients that either own, operate, or manage 100 or fewer vehicles in revenue service during peak regular service across all non-rail fixed route modes, or in any one non-fixed route mode, or a subrecipient under the 5311 Rural Area Formula Program, or any American Indian tribe. Tier 2 providers must either develop their own TAM plan or participate in a group TAM plan. For more information on the responsibilities of recipients for developing required TAM plans, please see FTA's TAM Plans webpage. All projects seeking FTA financial assistance require compliance with NEPA, implementing regulations, environmental impact and related procedures, efficient environmental reviews for the project, and numerous other environmental laws, regulations, and orders, such as Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, the Clean Water Act, and the Endangered Species Act. Project sponsors should consult with the FTA Regional Office early in project development to identify the appropriate class of action for the NEPA review and any other environmental requirements. Project sponsors may not move forward with any steps to develop the project that would preclude the fair consideration of alternatives until FTA concludes the NEPA process. Project sponsors should consult with their FTA Regional Office early in project development to identify the appropriate class of action for the NEPA review and any other environmental requirements. FTA allows recipients to incur costs before grant award for formula programs. In order for the pre-award costs to be eligible for subsequent reimbursement, the project must be approved in the STIP, outlined in the grant application, and specific pre-award costs included in the initial FFR. The project also must have met all FTA's statutory, environmental, procedural, and contractual requirements and qualify as a Category A project in the POP. Reimbursement is subject to the availability of funds and the grant agreement. Recipients should contact their FTA Regional Office before proceeding with pre-award authority. Now we'll move on to Chapter 6, Program Management and Administration Requirements. We'll start with the primary administration requirements of the rural programs. This includes satisfactory continuing control and responsibility. When capital equipment or facilities are acquired, built, or improved for use by any entity in a rural area public transportation or intercity bus transportation with FTA funds, provisions must be made to ensure satisfactory continuing control of that capital equipment and facilities. While the state agency serving as the FTA recipient may delegate these responsibilities to another entity, the state is ultimately responsible for compliance with this requirement. State financial records. FTA does not maintain detailed financial records on individual projects within a POP. Financial records, supporting documentation, and all other records pertinent to an award must be retained by the designated state agency and by each subrecipient, and must be made readily available to authorized representatives of the Department of Transportation. Construction management and oversight. The responsibility for construction management and oversight lies with the state. FTA does not approve design plans for construction projects by subrecipients. Next, we'll discuss some of FTA's reporting requirements. When an award is active, the recipient must comply with post-award reporting requirements. FTA's policy for reporting requirements may vary based on risk, including the size of the recipient or the type or amount of federal assistance the recipient receives, past performance, and experience. There are annual Program of Projects status reports, and those are due by October 31st of each year, where the state shall submit to FTA a program status report for each active grant, covering the 12-month period ending September 30th. Status reports are intended to meet minimal program information needs at the regional and national levels. Reports should include an updated POP for each approved grant that contains active projects. If a recipient has questions on reporting requirements, they should contact their FTA regional office. To close this chapter, we'll discuss state management reviews, or SMRs. FTA's administration of Section 5311 results in relatively little federal involvement in the day-to-day program activities or in the review of individual applications from subrecipients. To ensure that the program objectives are being carried out, the FTA Regional Office, with contractor assistance, conducts state management reviews every 3 years or as circumstances warrant. The review includes an inspection of documentation on file at the FTA Regional Office, a visit to the state offices to examine the procedures the state uses in administering the program, and local subrecipient site visits. While the focus of the review is compliance with Section 5311 requirements, the reviews may include Section 5339A grants and other grant program funds obligated to a state. Local site visits to the state's subrecipients are selected at random and meant to evaluate the state's effectiveness in meeting federal requirements and its own SMP. Recipients should contact their FTA regional office with questions on state management reviews. Now we'll move on to Chapter 7, the State Management Plan. The State Management Plan, or SMP, is a document that describes the state's policies and procedures in administering the Section 5311 and 5339A programs. All states are required to have an SMP approved by and on file with the FTA Regional Office. Additions or amendments to the SMP must be made and submitted to FTA whenever a state significantly changes its management of the program or when new program management requirements are imposed by FTA. Changes may be required as the result of a state management review by FTA. While FTA does not prescribe a specific format for the SMP, the plans should at least address the topics listed in Chapter 7, Part 3 of Circular 9040, Version 1H. All states must have an SMP approved by FTA on file at FTA's regional office. An approved SMP remains valid until FTA approves a later plan submitted by the state. An FTA state management review results in a specific request to the state by FTA for a revised SMP, or FTA announces significant new program changes. FTA strongly encourages the state to issue timely revisions to the SMP, particularly when information helpful to disadvantaged communities, subrecipients, and third-party contractors is involved. When the state proposes significant revisions to the SMP, it should give an opportunity to comment at the minimum to the potential subrecipients of assistance, potential service providers, other state agencies and representatives of other funding sources, and any relevant state associations and professional organizations. If revisions are substantive but not pervasive, the state may submit changes and additions in the form of page changes that FTA can improve and incorporate into the SMP on file. If the state changes the SMP significantly, however, it should submit the entire revised plan to FTA for approval. The state is responsible for ensuring that FTA has a complete electronic copy of the current SMP. Chapter 8 will be our briefest for discussion. We just have one slide on the Appalachian Development Public Transportation Assistance Program, or ADTAP. The ADTAP program is funded with a takedown from the Section 5311 program to provide additional funding to states in the Appalachian region of the United States. Consistent with the objectives of the Section 5311 program, funds should enhance access to healthcare, education, shopping, employment, public services, and recreation. FTA portions ADTAP funds to designated states by a statutory formula based on the guidelines established under Section 9.5b of the Appalachian Regional Commission Code. This allocation includes each state's remaining estimated need to complete eligible sections of the Appalachian Development Highway System as determined from the latest available cost estimates for completion of the system. All requirements and eligibilities for Section 5311 apply to ADTAP funds. And in the circular Table 8-1, you'll see a listing of the eligible states and counties in the Appalachian region. Chapter 9 pertains to the intercity bus program. The state is required to spend 15% of its annual Section 5311 apportionment to support intercity bus transportation, unless the governor certifies, after consultation with intercity bus providers, that the intercity bus service needs of the state are being met adequately. In many states, intercity bus service is a vital link between otherwise isolated rural communities and the rest of the nation. One objective of the funding for intercity bus service under Section 5311 is to support the connection between rural areas and the larger regional or national system of intercity bus service. Another objective is to support services to meet the intercity travel needs of residents in rural areas. A third objective is to support the infrastructure of the intercity bus network through planning and marketing assistance and capital investment in facilities. FTA encourages states to use the funding under Section 5311F, the intercity bus program, to support these national objectives, as well as priorities determined by the state. The state implements Section 5311F as part of its management of the Section 5311 program. FTA encourages the state to look at the intercity bus transportation needs of the entire state and also to work with neighboring states to adopt a program that will support a network of intrastate services and provide connections with a national network of interstate service. The state is encouraged to work with private providers of intercity bus transportation for potential use of the program. A new point of interest in the circular is that a recipient of assistance under Chapter 53 may not deny reasonable access for a private intercity or charter transportation operator to federally funded public transportation facilities, including intermodal facilities, park and ride lots, and bus-only highway lanes. In determining reasonable access, capacity requirements of the recipient of assistance and the extent to which access would be detrimental to existing public transportation services must be considered. This may include, for example, a review of physical constraints at the facility, scheduling, resource availability, and safety and security measures needed. In determining reasonable access, capacity requirements of the recipient of assistance and the extent to which access would be detrimental to existing public transportation services must be considered. Eligible activities under Section 5311F must support intercity bus service in rural areas. Some examples include improvements to existing or new intercity terminal facilities for rural passengers, modifications to transit facilities to facilitate shared use by intercity bus, intercity rail, and rural transit operators, operating assistance to support specific intercity route segments, and applications of intelligent transportation systems technology for coordinated information and scheduling. Transportation plans and transportation improvement programs must provide for intermodal facilities that support intercity transportation, including intercity buses and intercity bus facilities. A couple of definitions here. One is feeder service. Section 5311F funds may be used for the coordination of rural connections between small transit operations and intercity bus carriers, and may include the provision of service that acts as a feeder to intercity bus service and makes meaningful connections with scheduled intercity bus service to more distant points. The feeder service is not required to have the same characteristics as the intercity service with which it connects. For example, a feeder service may be demand response, while intercity service is by definition fixed route. In terms of capital projects in rural areas, use of Section 5311F funds for capital projects in urbanized areas is limited to those aspects of the project that can be identified as directly benefiting and supporting service to and from rural areas. These urban area projects must be included in both the Metropolitan TIP and the STIP and follow the appropriate project selection requirements contained in the Joint Planning Rule. A point of emphasis for the intercity bus program is in-kind match. In the case of an intercity bus project that includes both feeder service and an unsubsidized segment of the intercity bus service to which the feeder service connects, the local match may be derived from the costs of a private operator for the unsubsidized segment of intercity bus service, including all operating and capital costs of such service. The unsubsidized private operator costs can be used as the local match only if the private operator agrees in writing to the use of the costs of the private operator for the unsubsidized segment of intercity bus service as an in-kind match. In order to be eligible to be used as in-kind match, a cost must be allowable under the project and must connect a rural community to further points. We have an example calculation of in-kind match in Chapter 9.6.d, and when applying to use in-kind match, the state must provide supplemental information with its Section 5311 grant application as outlined in Chapter 9.6.f. The statutory provision for certification by the governor requires a statewide assessment of the intercity bus service currently available and of any existing needs. A state is required to expend at least 15% of its apportionment for an intercity bus program unless the governor of the state certifies to the U.S. Department of Transportation, after consultation with affected intercity bus service providers, that the intercity bus service needs of the state are being met adequately. A state certifying that its needs are adequately met must demonstrate that it has assessed statewide intercity mobility needs no more than 4 years before the date of its certification. In the SMP, the state must document its consultation process and any process that develops for periodically assessing statewide needs. The governor of the state or authorized designee must sign a certification letter addressed to the relevant FTA regional administrator. The letter should include sufficient information regarding the consultation process and needs assessments in order to demonstrate that the certification is supported by the results of the process. FTA will evaluate evidence that the state has followed its process in state management reviews approximately every 3 years. The requirements of the consultation process include identification of intercity bus providers in the state, activities the state will perform as part of consultation with identified providers and intercity bus organizations, an opportunity for intercity bus providers to submit proposals for funding as part of the state's distribution of its annual apportionment, a direct correlation between the results of the consultation process and a determination that the state's intercity needs are being met adequately, and transparency as to the state's intercity bus plans and processes required by and an opportunity for intercity bus operators to be involved in the development of those plans. In developing the consultative process elements mentioned above, FTA suggests considering the options listed in Chapter 9.5.c. Circular Chapter 10 deals with the Rural Transportation Assistance Program, or RTAP. RTAP program objectives are to make grants and contracts for transportation research, technical assistance, training, and related support services in rural areas. The state program provides an annual allocation to each state to develop and implement training and technical assistance programs in conjunction with the state's administration of the Section 5311 Formula Assistance Program. And the national program provides for the development of information and materials for use by local operators and state administering agencies, and supports research and technical assistance projects of national interest. The state administers state RTAP funds in conjunction with its management of the Section 5311 Formula Assistance Program. Application procedures, program administration, and management requirements must correspond to those for Section 5311 as described throughout the circular. The purpose of the national RTAP is to support the state programs and develop information resources about rural public transportation. a 15-member project review board that includes both state administrators and local transit operators, including one tribal representative, guides the development of national program activities and products. FTA directly funds the national program through cooperative agreements and contracts. The national program currently includes the following elements: development and maintenance of training materials, management and operational tools for use by rural and tribal transit operators and other information resources, a national resource center, including a toll-free hotline for information and technical assistance, an online information resource center, and a peer-to-peer technical assistance network. Regional and national meetings and workshops that support the state RTAPs, provide direct in-person training for rural and tribal transit operators, and promote information exchange about rural public transportation. National RTAP also manages the Transportation Technical Assistance Coordination Library, or TACL, a sustainable methodology and platform for access and findability of coordination resources across a diverse range of transportation technical resource centers, and the FTA. Other technical assistance resources are other national programs and projects that also provide valuable technical assistance resources for state and rural transit providers. We have a list of currently funded FTA technical assistance centers is available on our webpage. Additional federal technical assistance resources are available on a Coordinating Council for Access and Mobility, or CCAM, website. And FHWA's Tribal Transportation Assistance Program, or TTAP, has a center that offers additional resources to tribes and transit providers.
Greetings all, my name is Alon Flippin-Jones and I am FTA's Tribal Transit Program Manager with the Office of Program Management. I'm here to present training information on the Tribal Transit chapter of the Circular 9040 Formula Grants for Rural Areas. Here is an overview of Chapter 11, Public Transportation on Indian Reservations, or the Tribal Transit Program, TTP. Program Summary and Objectives. The Tribal Transit Program provides direct funding to federally recognized Indian tribes for the purpose of providing public transportation services on and around Indian reservations or tribal lands in rural areas with a population of less than 50,000. Funds set aside for tribes are not meant to replace or reduce funds that a tribe receives from a state's Section 5311 allocation or as a subrecipient of the 5311 funding from the state. TTP funds are meant to complement 5311 funds or other FTA funds that a tribe may receive. Eligible recipients under both the Tribal Transit Competitive and Formula Program include federally recognized Indian or Alaska Native tribes as identified by the BIA. A tribe must have the legal, financial, and technical capacities to receive and administer federal funds. Public transportation services funded under the Tribal Transit Program must serve the public and not just tribal members. Public transportation services funded under the TTP must serve areas with a population of less than 50,000 people. Service funded under this program must serve areas outside of urban areas with a population of 50,000 or more people as designated by the Census Bureau. Program eligibility. The Tribal Transit Formula Program is apportioned to federally recognized tribes providing public transportation services on Indian reservations and tribal lands. In order to receive TTP formula funds, a tribe must report their vehicle revenue miles, or VRMs, to the National Transit Database, or NTD, on an annual basis. Census data is also used for the Tribal Transit Formula Program allocations. The Tribal Transit Competitive Program allocates funds for grants to tribes for the purposes eligible under the Section 5311 program. A Notice of Funding Opportunity, or NOFO, describes eligibility and specific funding priorities. Eligible projects under the Tribal Transit Competitive Program include planning, capital, and operating. Eligible projects under the Formula Program also include planning, capital, and operating. Eligible services. Like Section 5311, tribal transit funds may be used for public transportation capital projects, operating costs of equipment and facilities, transit planning, and acquisition of public transportation services, which can include service agreements with private providers of public transportation services. Funds may also be used for startup transit services, enhancement of existing services, the purchase of transit capital items such as vehicles, and operating expenses including fuel, driver and dispatcher salaries, fringe benefits, and licenses. Please see Chapter 4 for full details on Section 5311 eligibility. Match requirements. There is no local match required under the Tribal Transit Formula Program. Beginning in FY24, there is also no match required under the Tribal Transit Competitive Program. Local match requirements under previous Tribal Transit Program competitions vary by allocation year. Please refer to the corresponding NOFO to verify the local match requirements. In the past, tribes could apply for a local match waiver under the Tribal Transit Competitive Program. Indirect cost rate. Under the Tribal Transit Formula Program, FTA will apply the indirect cost rate as identified in a cost allocation plan approved by a cognizant federal agency, which in most cases is not FTA, or an approved agreement with a cognizant agency. Under the Tribal Transit Competitive Program, a tribe should refer to the Notice of Funding Opportunity for the indirect cost rate related to the competitive funding. In general, the indirect cost rate for a Tribal Transit Competitive Award is capped at 10%. National Transit Database, or NTD. The NTD is FTA's primary national database for statistics on the transit industry. As I mentioned in a previous slide, tribal transit providers must report to the NTD to be included in the Tribal Transit Formula apportionment. Each Section 5311 recipient, including tribes, are required to report an annual report containing information on capital investment, operations, and service provided under Section 5311. Items to be reported to NTD include total annual revenue, sources of revenue, total annual operating cost, total annual capital cost, fleet size and type and related facilities, revenue vehicle miles, and ridership. Specific reporting requirements are included in the NTD Reporting Instruction Manual issued each year. For the most recent reporting manuals, they can be found and are available on NTD's manual webpage. The Tribal Transportation Self-Governance Program, or TTSGP. Grant funding made available through the Section 5311 program, the Tribal Transit Program, and other FTA programs may be included in a Tribal Transportation Self-Governance Program funding agreement if there is an existing self-governance compact in place between the tribe and the USDOT. If funds are administered under the TTSGP funding agreement, the funds will be subject to the requirements and provisions of the Self-Governance Program regulation. For more information, please visit the TTSGP's webpage. A link is provided here.
Our final section is another short one that has to do with flexible funding. which can be found in Appendix A of Circular 9040 version 1.8. Flexible funding is available for those programs authorized under the Federal Aid Highway Program that are permitted to be used for either transit or highway projects. The funds may be transferred to FTA for any capital projects, including preventative maintenance and operational expenses eligible under FTA's Urbanized Area Formula Funding Program, Section 5307, the Enhanced Mobility of Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities Program, Section 5310, and this one, the Formula Grants for Rural Areas Program, Section 5311. Additional planning resources for flexible funding can be found at the linked USDOT webpage.
This concludes our formal presentation of Session 2 of the 2 sessions for our Circular 9040.1H training series. While this slide is entitled Next Steps, the ball is really in your court to decide what you would like to do next. As noted, we are continuing our series of videos that will be posted to FTA's website through mid-November 2024. Those videos are posted where you found this one. The email address goes right to our office, and we will follow up to address those questions and concerns. Also included are links to the finalized circulars. In the meantime, if you have any questions, you can reference these links here or contact us at FTA Circular Update 2024 at dot.gov. As part of our ongoing efforts and commitment to serving the public, FTA is committed to improving America's communities through improving public transportation. We share a vision of fostering a better quality of life for all, built on public transportation excellence through commitment to service, integrity, innovation, sustainability, and equity. Thank you again for watching. We hope you will view other videos related to the 2024 circulars.